and verified that we've got quorum, we can go ahead and get started. Thanks for being here. It's our fourth time together. Today, we're going to start our fire department presentation, but before we dive in, wanted to spend just a moment sharing with you meeting schedule. Suggested to me that when we're meeting on a daily basis, it can seem like a lot. So if I can take a moment just to let you know how long that's going to last before we can slow down the pace a little bit, that would be helpful. So I wanted to just quickly share that information with you. I'm getting there as I speak so that I can share just the schedule with you. That way we've got a visual. I'm going to share this for just a moment, if that's okay. I might have to share that after I'm done, but. So hopefully you can see this on the screen. Basically, we completed our introduction, our financial outlook, part 1 and part 2. Today is part 1 of the fire department. We'll come back next week to finish part 2 of the fire department, and then we'll be off for a couple of weeks while we enjoy the holidays. We'll come back together on January 7th, where we'll talk about our airport aircraft rescue and firefighting group. Then the following week, emergency management. We've got 2 weeks of police department. And then at that point, you all can decide, hey, as we debrief, do we want to meet every other week, or how often do you want to meet as a committee? So I know this has been a lot of information and meeting every week. This can be taxing, but we appreciate you being here and sticking with us. And just a reminder, we're almost about halfway. So thanks for being here and participating. So our next agenda item, I did want to let you know that I spoke to Mike Lovin after our last meeting. He has offered to take that chair role so that we have someone who is a committee participant available to answer questions from council or to share some of the conversation that's gone on with the committee if they have inquiries as we're presenting to them. So I wanted to share that in case there's anyone else who might be willing to come forward as a vice chair. The reason I ask is because if not, one of the things I will need to do as your facilitator is update your charter to show we have a chair but not a vice chair if we don't have someone interested in that role. So just would ask if there's anyone who's willing to partner with Mike, again, to be that voice when we're in front of council. Staff will do your presentation. We'll do the staff summary. We'll do most of the administrative work, but we really like for there to be that voice from the committee. Michelle, I think, I can't see that far across the room, but I think that's Michelle James.
Yes, very good. You can read that. Hey, so
How are you?
I am great. I would volunteer for that.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, terrific.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So I guess then could we have a motion to accept Mike Lovin as the chair and Michelle James as the vice chair?
So moved.
Bonnie, do we have a second?
I will do the second.
Thank you, Bonnie. I appreciate it. All those who please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Great, that motion carries. Thank you very much. I will now turn it over to the fire department so they can begin to part 1 of their presentation. Michelle, did you have anything else to add before we move on?
You don't like being that close to the end.
Oh, that's fine. I just didn't want to put you in front of the camera.
Okay, that's fine. I don't want to block the screen. So.
Oh,
And I think we all agree I could block the screen. So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Mark Gaylord and I get to be the fire chief for the Flagstaff Fire Department. We're pretty excited about the opportunity to speak with you all about your fire department and what we do and some of the challenges that we've had. We've got a really outstanding team. First of all, thank you for giving us an excuse to see so many of our team in a white shirt. I'm very grateful for that. They look pretty good when we get them that way. We don't see it very often. I appreciate the team that's here. Let me introduce everybody. On the far side over here is Chris Jack. He's a battalion chief and he's the city's fire marshal. Then next to him is Battalion Chief Paul Latrogi. Paul's our Wildland Fire Battalion Chief. Then we've got our EMS Fire Chief, Battalion Chief Seth Greger. Then we have our newly minted Deputy Chief of Community Risk Reduction, Pal Denham. Chris Fennell is the Deputy Chief of Operations. He supervises, we'll tell you a little bit more about that, but the majority of our department works for Chris. It's that big part that goes out and you see him every day. And then we've got the behind the scenes Deputy Chief Mark Wilson, who is administration and support services. We'll explain a little bit about how all those functions come together. So again, thank you very much for the opportunity. How are we advancing?
Yes, got to advance.
Well, just before we get going, I just want to just kind of pose the question. So if we have an emergency at any home in the city of Flagstaff or on any street in the city of Flagstaff, most of us make assumptions that if we dial 911, we're going to get help quickly. We're going to get help we need, and they're going to be trained, and there are going to be enough of them. And one of the things that we want you to think through as we present some of this information is, what if that's not exactly correct? And so we want to really spend a little bit of time. You're going to see a lot of information and you'll see a lot about what's changed over the course of the city and some of the growth things that have occurred, impacts of growth. Not only has growth come, but it's changed the makeup and the risk of the city. So it's important for us to kind of identify that for you all if we're going to explain what needs that we find ourselves with and what challenges we have. Most people would assume that as Flagstaff has grown, that we've grown the resources to match that growth. And I think what we'll show you today is that we haven't quite kept up with that expectation. And so we really want to just, first of all, thank you for being here and allowing us to have this audience with you and share this information with you and the community. So we'll start with who we are. Next slide, please. We always like to start with this. We're a mission-based organization. I try to explain this when we talk to new firefighters. You know, they're going to go through recessions and highs and lows in a 25 and 30-year career. And what we want them to kind of recognize is, well, the beautiful part about the work that we do is our mission doesn't change based on the economic climate. We continue to go out and do the best we can with what we have, where we're at, and do the best we can for the customer, the citizen. And so a little bit about us is just our value set, that piece of there's a lot of fire departments and they all do similar work. But what is it that makes our department unique? What we would say are our values and how we go about attempting to meet that mission. For us, that looks like integrity, respect, and honesty, and trust. That trust for us in the community is super important. There isn't another municipal government service that enjoys the trust that we have with the community. Our people routinely show up at a stranger's door at 3 o'clock in the morning. The door is thrown open. We go to back. We take care of grandma, the daughter, someone in the family all day long. Now that trust, I've worked long enough to see that some fire and emergency service organizations have lost the trust in their community. It can happen, but that is very dear to us. We can't do our job on an effective level unless we have that trust. And so we just wanted to start with that for us because that's important. The other thing I wanted to share with you is how do we protect the community? When we take in a community risk reduction approach, and within community risk reduction, there's a concept called the 5 E's. And if you take a look at this graphic, and you'll see it, and I won't go through everything within the graphic, but essentially there are 5 E's are education, enforcement, economic incentives, engineering, and then the emergency response. The message is for us that we hope to impart is if a community wants to protect itself, you have to advance in every one of these areas. You can't just advance in one. And so for us, we're going to show you what we've done in our progress over time. We're going to match up these services. This isn't the org chart. It's a very good illustration of the many services that we provide. And they're not always in a perfect organizational structure. In other words, firefighters are involved in emergency response, and they're also very much involved in education. In other words, wildland firefighters involved in restoration work are also involved in enforcement work. So we just want to kind of paint that picture for you that that's how we take care of the community. And we need to be supported in each one of those areas if we're going to be effective in protecting Flagstaff. So the idea of education is making the public aware of risk and how to mitigate them through programs such as the work that we're doing that's coming out of our wildfire division, which is home hardening. We're doing a tremendous amount of work trying to set the stage for improved survivability of Flagstaff from the catastrophic effects of fire that we've seen in other communities, that we've seen in our community just to the east of us. So the other piece is the enforcement piece. Some of the best examples of that are for us is just a code enforcement of the fire code. Another really good example people often don't think of is when we have meetings in the middle of the summer and we say no fires. We go into restrictions on the forest, and we do so with our partners at the state and at the federal level. That's a form of enforcement, one of the tools that we use to protect the community. The other piece is the engineering piece. I think typically when I got involved in the fire service, engineering was all about the built environment. The built environment would be, are we going to put residential sprinklers in homes? Are we going to make sure that residential streets are wide enough to get a fire truck down it? Are we going to ensure that commercial properties are built under the most recent code? One of the most vibrant examples of engineering in our community is the fact that we go out and we modify the organic environment, the forest all around us. And that's a form of engineering. So we're changing the forest and we're changing the vegetation in and around the community. And you're going to see some examples of where the work is next in some of the information that our team is going to provide you. But that's in the form of the engineering piece. The other piece that we'll talk about is economic incentives. Those can look like positive and negative ones. So economic incentives for us is if you have a problem with smoke and you call us and there's prescribed fire in the area, we have a program in conjunction with sustainability in our organization. We can get you an air filter for your home. We've been helping, I don't know how many we've distributed, but we might have that information, but we're able to do that. We're looking at this week, our city council is setting a legislative agenda. What we know is the work that needs to be done inside the city limits to remove fuel and vegetation and to help improve the survivability and the resilience of our homes in Flagstaff against wildland fire coming into the community. It's a lot of money to ask for a single parcel owner to do. And so we're looking at, are there ways to access funds to help homeowners in the city of Flagstaff harden their homes and protect themselves against wildland fire? Another example of what an economic incentive might be. And then finally, it is the emergency response. Most of the time, when you think about what we do, you're thinking about, I just saw a fire truck go down the street, red lights and siren. And so that's That's what most people think about when they think about the fire department. Certainly an important part of what we do. Certainly an effective firefighting force, an effective initial attack at wildland fires, big, important part of what our needs are here in the city of Flagstaff. And that's emergency medical services, fire suppression being both structural and wildland fire. And by the way, if you, hopefully this is the first time you'll hear it and not the last time you'll hear it from our team, is every firefighter in the city of Flagstaff is a structural firefighter in a fire station, is a structural firefighter and a wildland firefighter. And so our emergency response, our initial attack to wildland fire comes out of those firehouses that you see that maybe you don't think of initially when you think about wildland firefighting. And then with that, the operations on a daily basis and non-emergency and emergency operations coming out of firehouses. So that's the emergency response piece. We're trying to do in the community is trying to build that protection of the 5 E's around Flagstaff and inside of Flagstaff. And so we hope that makes sense. We hope it makes more sense as you learn more about the organization. Just generally, we organize, the 5 E's are organized from an organizational standpoint into 3 major operations, 3 major divisions. Operations is the first one, we mentioned that. Chief Fennell is the operations chief. He oversees 3 shifts. They are in firehouses 24/7, 365, providing all risk emergency services. Deputy Chief Denham is the community risk reduction. So he's got fire prevention components and he's got the wildland fire management piece. Then we have Deputy Chief of Support Services, Mark Wilson, dealing with fire administration. He has the EMS battalion chief and the training battalion chief, both support types of functions that fall into support services. So that's generally the very simplified organizational chart of your fire department. And we'll turn it over now. Oh, excuse me. This is a really interesting chart as well. So this is kind of taking a look at an organization from its longevity, from the seniority of the individuals that make up the organization. Take a look at this. A couple of things are really important. 15% of our department is scheduled to retire in the next 5 years. So that's a lot of experience walking out the door, like we had occur to us when Scott left, and then went a lot of knowledge and experience in particularly daily operations of a fire captain and also for special operations. And so our ability to promote that growth in the next generation coming up in the organization is a big part of what concerns us about the immediate future. And if you take a look at the other piece of that, 47% of the fire department has 10 years or less of service. And that's also kind of denotes a very youthful fire department. We're not allowed to say young anymore. We're the HR people. We don't say young, we say less tenured employees. But what we're seeing is we identify these as areas of strategic importance for the fire department. Who's next? And then who can be next and who's prepared to be next? And so those are big strategic issues in our view on what's ahead of us.
Chief, I just wanted to say that Michelle James has her hand raised. I'm not sure if you guys are seeing that.
Yes, go ahead.
Had asked.
I'm sorry. That's still from last time I raised my hand. I will take it down now. I don't have a question. Thanks.
Thanks, Michelle. Thanks, Heidi.
Afternoon, everybody. As Chief Gaylord said, I'm Chris Fallon, the Deputy Chief of Operations, and I'm going to walk you through who we are and what we do from the operations side of things. And as you can see from this slide, big thing with us, we operate out of 6 fire stations. These are all spread out throughout the city in strategic locations to help us get to where the calls are, but have it split up enough where we don't have a whole lot of overlap. So 6 fire stations that are staffed 24/7. We have a wildland station that's out at the airport. That one's staffed Monday through Friday from 8 to 5 with our wildland crew. And then we also have a regional training facility that's over by Wildcat Water Treatment Plant, Picture Canyon. That's where we train our recruits and everything else over there. Inside our stations, we respond out of 6 frontline engines and whenever plus two frontline rescues. What the engines look like, big red truck with a white cab. Our rescues look like an ambulance. We have 2 co-staff quints, which the picture you see down below is what a quint is. And it's basically an engine that has a big ladder that's on the top of it. So we'll explain some more stuff on co-staffing and look at some of the reasons why we need there currently. We're trying to staff a quint full-time just because of the risk that's going on in our city with everything going up. And so we'll look at some examples of that. And we also have our wildland fire module, which our wildland division will be covering later on. Those are the ones that are staffed out of Station 10 out at the airport. Slide, what we do, you can skip this one. Okay. So the big thing that we want you to take home from this slide is we do all risk, all hazard response. Whenever somebody calls 911, whatever it is, we're going to it and we're going to try to figure out what it is. On our dispatch system to go through and try and triage the call and let us know what we're going to and try to pick the best information so we're taking the right truck to the right situation. You can see we do structural and wildland fires. We do medical calls, including vehicle accidents or like this picture in the bottom right corner of train accident. We go on those quite a bit too, and it makes a big mess and leaves us with a lot of things to think about while we're doing it. We have a hazardous materials team, a technical rescue team. We do fire investigations. We have engine boss for wildland, along with some other specialty stuff. And one of the big things that we want to hit on this one too is that all of the people, whenever they come into our organization, they're minimally trained to be emergency medical technicians, so they can work as EMTs, provide that basic medical stuff. We have them go to the community college. They're firefighter 1 and 2 certified. We have them go through basic wildland firefighting classes so that they can participate in wildland. And then we also send them to a hazardous materials technicians class, which is 40 hours. So whenever they walk into the organization, they have some training that they pick up here, there, everywhere else. And then we put them through an 11-week academy to train them how to be firefighters within our region. Some of the stuff with the structure, firefighting, a lot of the stuff that we do is aggressive fire attack, search and rescue, ventilation, which is getting all the smoke out of the building, and then rapid intervention to keep the fire small. The thing to think about is fires in the structure scenario, they're going to double in size every minute. So what starts out as this with our response time and everything else, it just keeps growing. So early detection is a big thing there. Wildland firefighting, as you can see in the picture there, we do wildland year round. It used to be snowpack, everything else. It was just during the summer months, but as we become a little bit drier and we're fighting fire. Emergency medical calls. Every engine and rescue that we send out has at least one paramedic staffed with that. They're provided advanced life support. Medical calls, they can extend anything from somebody wanted to be checked out to a heart attack, to a stroke, to a vehicle accident where people are trapped and we need to use specialized tools to extricate them from the vehicle before we transport them. This one's looking at some of our other skills that we have. So bottom left corner of your screen, you'll see that's our technical rescue team. And what the technical rescue team does is high angle rope rescue. A lot of the stuff off Mount Eldon, sometimes it's a steep incline. And so we need to figure out how to get people up there using ropes and systems. There's confined space rescue, swift water rescue. That's been something that's been kind of new to us in the region up here, but we saw people that were in the canoes going down the Rio de Flag and stuff like that, where you don't usually have people in canoes there. Some trench rescue, and one of the other things we do is ice water rescue. So bottom right corner, that's one of our people going out in the ice rescue suit. We've been out to Lake Mary for dogs in the water. We've been at the duck pond down in the middle of town for people that were out there on the island, and that team gets used every once in a while. It's a low frequency, it's a high risk scenario that we go through as well. Our technical rescue team also ties in a lot with Coconino County Search and Rescue. We deploy with them pretty regularly. We also work with the Department of Public Safety on a program called Short Haul, where we go into remote areas and fly in on a cable attached to a helicopter to make access to a patient, stabilize them, we get a package up, it's back, we pick them up and off we go. Our hazardous materials team, which is the people in the green suits, we provide a hazardous material team for the region. That includes a lot of the transportation corridors we have. We have I-17 coming through, we have I-40 coming through, and we also have the railroad, some industrial facilities, and some labs at NAU. So this team has been deployed recently. We were all the way up at the Dragon Bravo fire for some stabilization and monitoring of some gases up there to make it safe for the fire crews to come in and take care of business. So generally speaking, our teams manage chemical spills, gas leaks, any kind of unknown substances, and then any type of big hazardous materials incident. Moving to our SWAT medics, if you can go back to that slide. Yeah, sorry. Our SWAT medics are in the upper right-hand corner. These are paramedics who team up with the police department SWAT team during any kind of high-risk, high-stress law enforcement operations. Their primary role is to provide medical care to officers during the critical incidents where regular EMS can't enter the scene because it's not safe, it's not set up, it's not been secured. So we tie them, our SWAT medics are also certified to go teach at the law enforcement academy. It's been a really good partnership to have our people go in and talk to recruits in the police department about how to provide medical care. And just a good relationship for whenever people are out on the street and running into each other. We have a team of certified fire investigators, and they conduct the origin and cause investigations from initial setup, looking to see what they can find there. And they're trained to go all the way through court proceedings and everything else for prosecution. We also serve as a host site. There's 4 modules to become a fire investigator, and Flagstaff hosts one of those. So people from the state come in and program here in Flagstaff, and use our training center out on Wildcat to help facilitate that. We also have in our wildland division, we have an engine boss program. We do a lot of wildland fire, and engine boss is equivalent to a captain out in the wildland arena. So with the risk that we have around here, it's important to have engine bosses and have that training and experience. And a lot of it you gain outside, so it's not home that's burning, it's somewhere else. And unfortunately, you're picking up experience at someone else's expense, but we apply that here in scale incidents. So that engine boss is achieved through formal training, operational experience, and then we have a position task book that needs to be completed by somebody who's rated to sign you off to say that you're okay to work in that position. Next slide, please. Some of our other specialty teams. We have a critical incident stress management team and a peer support group. And we use those to help manage the stress of the incidents that we encounter. Our critical incident team is used regularly throughout the region. It's not just for flag fire. We farm it out to the region. We've done them for CCSO. We've done them for Flagstaff Police Department. We're all in this together and helping each other out with it. Some of the things that we do diffusings, debriefings for are things like fatality motor vehicle accidents, trauma to a child, death or injury to a coworker, be close calls, or really anytime one of our members says, and I need a diffusing, then we'll get that set up and we'll go. With the increase in our call volume, with some of the overtime things that we have, it leads to burnout of our personnel, and having these programs in place with the mental health and the peer support has been great to help prolong the breeds and have people happy at work. Our honor guard team, they assist with a lot of things throughout the region and state with fallen public safety members. It's never a good thing, but they also do events such as the 9/11 ceremony. And you'll see like this picture up in the upper left-hand corner, that's the Guardian Air Classic helicopters that ran into each other years ago. And So our team goes out to support things like that as well. We also do incident management for special events. So we provided incident command for large events like wildfires, post flooding, created a whole lot of opportunities for us to exercise our management teams. And then we have things like the festivals such as the Pride event. We've had VIP dignitaries come in to visit, and we've set our teams up for that. And we use them for other things where big events like the cone drop, where we get tens of thousands of people, 10,000 people that come downtown in a very small area, which is risk to us. And we want to make sure that we're prepared for that.
Question online, Chris, from Roxana. Roxana, go ahead.
Thank you. So given that we live in a very diverse community in northern Arizona, certainly Coconino County, Flagstaff, what are the efforts that you're looking at or taking on right now to build bridges across cultural and linguistic barriers?
We do a lot of things to build across barriers. And one of the things that we do is I'll let you answer that.
Yeah, I've just had a great conversation this morning, for instance, at our fire training facility when we train new firefighters. We have a cultural piece that's associated with that. Currently, the fire chief of Navajo Nation Fire Department has been teaching that for us and for the last several academies. And it's a function of, really great information because one, he's from indigenous peoples. Two, he knows what we do for a living. And so it's a really great approach to kind of helping us bridge that gap, be super sensitive, understanding what we need to do to try to take care of the community that we have. And then just generally, there's a tremendous amount of information available to us as employees of Team Flagstaff. But those are the two that come to mind. And I hope that's answering your question.
In part, and I didn't really ask this in the question, but as you're talking about this, it reminds me of, and I hope that you're aware, I'm sure that you're aware of a lot of political, for lack of a better word, I don't think it's political, but it's close to being political work that's being done that creates distrust in our communities of agencies that are meant to protect in all kinds of ways, including yours. Is this something that you all engage with in ways that are meaningful, ways that are effective with our community?
Sorry, I'm not sure I understand.
I'm happy to reframe it if that helps.
I think that might be helpful, Roxana, if you could.
Sure. So basically what I'm getting at, I can give you a specific example, is with our migrant community, across the country, we've seen plenty of situations where there's a lot of reasons based on people's experiences to distrust our agencies right now, given the way that immigration law enforcement has been happening. So when there is a lack of understanding of how agencies work with that or not, it can make it so that it's impacting us at the local level, even if that kind of stuff isn't happening here. How have you approached that subject, if at all, here at the local level?
I neglected to introduce one of our team members here.
That was the non-white shirt that
The
threw him off.
non-white shirt. Yeah, to introduce Captain Casey Gonzalez. And he is also our union president for the Flagstaff firefighters. And currently, he's been detailed over to assist with managing the dispatch center for public safety. And I just asked him the question, have you seen, I think we understand what the question is. Are these very contemporary issues and concerns that our migrant communities across the United States are experiencing? Are we sensitive to that? Are we seeing any impacts? And I just asked Casey if he could speak to what he knows about what's going on in the streets of Flagstaff.
So I'll say, Roxana, from the fire side, the EMS response side, and this is locally, statewide, and with the International Association of Firefighters. It's not something that is, I'd say a hot topic with us as far as where we engage with the community, whichever the community is. The tones go off, we go to the call, and we treat everybody for what we're finding on the call. We don't get into any status beyond that of who the individual is, where they're from, whatever type of status that is. We don't, we assist on a medical basis when requested and where requested. There's nothing on a national or a state level that's coming down with fire agencies that have been controversial within policies or procedures or response within that, on our basis, whether it's fire, wildland structure, even if we're being requested by law enforcement for assistance, which for the medical side of it, which happens regularly, that's not where we get into the mix of the situation. We treat the individual, regardless of any sort of status, immigration status, social status, gender, ethnic, race, whatever, any other creed, whatever you want to put on there. We just treat the patient as is for what we find and get them to the hospital or mitigate the emergency as it is. And that's where we stop. We haven't gone beyond that. There's nothing on a federal, state or national level that's being brought up on the fire side with any of that. And as far as our outreach within the department itself and with other departments, one of the programs that we now have is a mentorship program called the House of Jacks for bringing in new firefighters, younger folks at any age bracket, any social bracket, whatever, that is looking to get into fire. And it is a very diverse population within that, from all walks of life and ages and backgrounds, socioeconomic status, whatever it is, male, female, and have helped in any way possible and working, to the reservations, the north of us. Recently had a guy, Cesar from Ecuador, that we hired. Him and his family ended up going back home where his family was at down there. But yeah, we don't get to that point of it. If you want to work in fire, we're going to do everything we can to get you there. And through that House of Jacks program and on a call to call basis, we're there to treat you and get you to the appropriate medical care. And the next one. Does that answer it?
It does. Thank you for answering, and thank you for giving me a lot of really reassuring information.
Welcome. Thank you for that question, Roxana. Okay, we can go to the next slide and skip through this one. So this one, I just want to tell you a quick story. So I was working for Summit Fire as a battalion chief. This is a picture of the tunnel fire that happened in 2022. And I came in the morning. I was over at Station 33, which is located on Highway 89 North in Timberline community. I came in at about 6:30 to 7 as a request from the Forest Service to send an engine out. So it's a 2-story building. I went over and I looked out and I see a little bit of wispy smoke up there. Didn't really think much of it. So I'm going about my day. I hear the crew going out there. They call up about 10 o'clock in the morning. They say, "Hey, can you bring some drinking water out to us?" And I'm like, "Yeah, how's it going out there?" "Oh, it's going pretty good. We're getting it picked up." So, okay, sounds good. So get the water, do some other things, start heading back out there to go drop the water off. And then I come around the corner and it's a little bit before this progression of the fire. There's an air tanker that's coming in and it's dropping its load and it's trying to gain altitude and it's not gaining altitude. And I'm thinking, I'm going to watch this plane crash in the middle of a neighborhood with this fire that's ripping, pushing that way. And it was terrifying to say the least. So I get down to the Chevron. There's people from the sheriff's office there. There's people from the state fire that are there. We're starting to get together to try and figure out what's going on. The wind's blowing so hard, we can't even hear each other talk. So we decided to go back down to Station 33 and set up our command post there. So we get down there. It took us a couple minutes to get back in the trucks and get down there. Within 15 minutes, I'm hearing propane tanks explode. And I know that fire is moving into the neighborhood. We had a very quick response with getting a hold of the sheriff's office to let go, start evacuating homes. And within about 2 hours, there were 30 homes, 24 outbuildings, 100 parcels that had had fire go through them. And this is in an area that has 2.5 to 5 acre parcels. Think of something like this if it came through and the damage it would cause if it went through the Heights. Or if it starts on Mars Hill in the perfect conditions to do something like that, how much more damaging it would be. We're starting to see more fires like this off stuff. We're starting to see these nationwide. There's some examples that are on there, but I just wanted to share that story, not as a freak out or anything like that, just as something that at that point in time, I'd been in fire for 28 years. I came up through the Forest Service, and that's the fastest fire I've ever seen move. And it was terrifying. Luckily, no loss of life. It's terrifying to say the least. So, okay, next slide. I want to talk a little bit about our emergency response system. We're going to talk about co-staffing. So each one of our fire stations, we've got 6 stations. We have a primary truck that comes out of there. Each station that we have has at least 3 trucks there. And so we call those co-staffing because depending on what it is that's at the station, you decide what to pick. And on our map, up in the far reaches up here on the top of the map on the left-hand side, there's a dot, that's station 5. So station 5 has a regular fire engine that's there. Hazmat truck comes out of there. There's also a big wildland truck that comes out of there. So anytime there's something that's dispatched, the crew has to decide which truck do we go get in. And we've got a slew of gear. I've got 2 duffel bags. This one's my structure stuff. This one's my wildland stuff. And so we're moving that gear around. We're doing things like that. And our points that we're going to talk about are going to be the same thing. A lot of this was done as efficiency. We don't have enough resource to hire Station 5, 3 different trucks, 3 different crews to run those trucks. It's just not practical. So the way we do it is co-staff and we take the appropriate truck to the appropriate scene. So you're going to see that come up quite a bit in our presentation, some of it today, but some of it next week on the 17th as well about co-staffing.
So because you don't have enough staff to staff each individual vehicle, and if another call came in and you needed that vehicle from that station, if you already have staff out, then you don't have anybody to take that. So it could potentially go to another station like farther away. Is that okay?
And there's been times when we picked up specialized equipment like the hazmat truck, that's where it's at in that location. Sometimes we have to send the truck to go pick up the truck that we need and get it to where we're at. And it just slows things down a little bit. Question, I think, for that. So while that approach, it increased our flexibility, reduced our staffing expenses by co-staffing. It also means the crew has to pick one function on what they do and how to respond. Interagency coordination. Talk about the automatic aid, the 3-in-1 units and everything else. So whenever you look at the map that's over here on your screen, to the north, we have Summit Fire District. To the south, we have Highlands Fire District. We call this area the Greater Flagstaff region because we're in an automatic aid agreement with them, which means wherever the call's at, it doesn't matter what the patch says on your shirt, whoever's closest goes to it. It's great customer service for everybody. In previous years before we had that, this is the boundary and this agency would respond to here and this agency would respond to there, but we didn't cross over. And so having this automatic aid system in place has been really good. There's a regional response card through dispatch and they would pick whoever's the closest unit and say, you're up, go to it. Very efficient, very effective. Usually what we use our automatic aid system for is typically for structure and wildland fire. And we do these things that we call a 3-in-1. So whenever you look up here, you see the 3-in-1. What it means is we're sending 3 units to it. It could be 2 engines and a rescue. It could be 3 engines. It could be 2 engines and a Quint. It's whatever's available in the system that the dispatch system can grab and say, go to it. And we also send a battalion chief with that as well. Our system is pretty well set up to move different places, like the tunnel fire, that picture that I showed you. We shifted the system out towards Summit to go take care of lives and property out there. We had a structure fire last year in Kachina Village where 3 homes were burning, and we shifted the system south to take care of that. So inherent to our system is we can go have the first 3-in-1 that we send out, and then everything past that, we call them alarms. So we say it's a first alarm, we add another 3 units in the battalion. We can go all the way up to a 3rd alarm before we're completely out of units. And what that means to say completely out of units, all the units that are staffed in the fire stations supposed to be on duty that day, everybody's gone. So whenever we get in situations like that, we call in extra crews. We do what we call a full recall, the page out and say, hey, get to the station, we need help. And then we've also got some other aid systems throughout the state that we can call to get people to come back in and backfill and help us out with that. The reason we use this system, the reason we use the alarms is we're regulated, we're best firefighting practices is a standard that we have called NFPA 1710. And that ties our staffing and response times together. So if we have a house fire, the NFPA standard is that we have 15 firefighters on scene within 8 minutes, 90% of the time. Currently, the only place that we can get close to that is going to be where 4th Street and Route 66 come together. As we have Station 2, Station 4, and Station 3 coming in. So that's our best chance right now with our staffing and with our station locations in order to make that happen. If we go on to some of the bigger buildings with higher risk, for those, we need to get 42 firefighters there in 10 minutes and 10 seconds, 90% of the time. So whenever we're looking at some of that stuff, it's a difficult thing for us to get because again, that's the entire region. So think about where the stations are located in town and our surrounding partners, and trying to get people in 10 minutes is tough. But I just want to provide just a little bit of explanation on some of that stuff as you're going to see it again later. We'll go to the next slide. So this slide and these pictures, and the point of all this is that we've been seeing a lot of vertical growth in the city. You're driving around, I see people shaking their head and raising their eyebrows. It's going on all over the place. Our property is expensive, and vertical growth is the wave of the future. That's what we're going to see. Not just us, we're seeing that all over the place. And whenever we look at this stuff, it provides a whole different level of risk than what we had before. This building, before it got, there was single story stuff there. Didn't have the concern that we did of, we've got a concrete and metal box down on the bottom on the 1st floor. We've got 4 floors of wood frame stuff up above that. So it poses a lot different kind of risk for us. In 2001, we picked 2001 because that's whenever the data goes back in our GIS system to show heights of the building. So we went back to 2001. We had 316 buildings that were over 2 stories. Fast forward to 2025, we've got 665 buildings that are over 2 stories. So we'll look at some of this stuff too, but 109% increase in risk to us. Okay, next slide.
So does Flagstaff still have limitations on height? Stories?
Yeah, so some of the zoning code requirements still limit to 60 feet is the common limit. It depends on the zone though. Different zones have different limits.
The hospital was going to be higher than that, am I correct?
And that's correct. And they were asking for an exemption from that to build to that height. Because their floors were going to be closer to 20 feet with all the mechanical, everything that goes along with that. So that's why they wanted to go so high with the hospital.
We need new quints to be able to handle larger buildings.
We have the quints, we have our quints co-staff. So Bringing that up to that slide just really quick. So whenever you look at this building or regular fire trucks, the truck with the white cab, no big ladder on the top, can get to the windows on the second floor. Some of the balconies we can get to on the third floor. And that's the limitation of it. And that's where the Quint comes in, that you can use the Quint to get up to the higher floors, fourth and fifth. You can use it to get on the roof. We can use it while our crews are going up the stairwells. You can put the stick up and spray water into the apartment or the townhouse, whatever is being affected right then, just to keep everything in check until we get those crews up into place.
Then it takes more and more people to get, more firefighters to get citizens out of buildings that are higher, especially for medical.
Yeah, I think I sensed the question. Aerial trucks in the United States don't get to the top of high-rise buildings. They do not. But high-rise building, what they pose is an enormous manpower need. All of our equipment has to go up into the building, and then it's specialized equipment. A lot of it is ventilating. One of the things we can do to help people survive incidents inside of these giant cubes of concrete is control the quality of the airspace. And so a lot of that equipment is carried on the ladder trucks. But for us, what's missing is our folks had to pick one of those trucks. What we needed was 2 of those trucks fully staffed because of the work ahead of them when they got there.
Thank you.
Roxanne may have had a question. Her hand went up and it went back down, so I want to check in with her real quick. Roxanne, did you still have a question?
I did have a question, but I wasn't sure if it made sense to ask here, but I was curious because I think I heard you say that different zones have different limitations in terms of height, and was wondering if that's something that you have more information around.
I can definitely get that for you. It's in the zoning code, so I'm not the expertise on that, but I can get that information.
That would be great. Thank you.
Shannon's up with the next slide.
I have a quick question. So is this mostly a lack of people resources? Like what you're needing to do is you're needing to hire more people to man the equipment that you have?
We're gonna go into detail on that.
Okay, I'm jumping ahead.
Yes. The staffing comes into play, but we'll break that down.
Perfect, thank you.
So one of the things that we wanted to call out to the group is what's changed from a population standpoint. So many folks, when we talk about public safety, they think of just our immediate community, 70,000 residents that live here. And so we thought it was important to get all this information kind of in one place for us to be able to look at. We've checked in with our Discover Flagstaff team. From a tourism perspective, we see about 5 million visitors come into our community on an annual basis. Which means we just have more and more folks who are coming to visit, which impacts not only fire, but our police agency as well. We also have a university that's here with us. NAU has just over 19,000. It's 19,993 students that attend our Flagstaff campus, so just under 20,000. And about 9,800 of those students actually live on campus. So again, that's going to have an impact for our fire department. We talked about the 78,000 residents of those of us who live here, but important to also keep in mind that a lot of folks, I think Rick might have mentioned it during the last meeting, a lot of folks are moving outside of the Flagstaff city limits as far as their home or their residence, but they're coming into our town. It's where they work, it's where their kids go to school, it's where they shop. So again, we're seeing that population fluctuate quite significantly on a regular basis, and that definitely has an impact on our public safety services. And so we thought it might be helpful just to get all this information on one slide. And you certainly saw the huge crowd that was there for, was that the Pine Cone Drop? Yeah, and I think there's bets going around city employees right now, but they're thinking the Winter Wonderland that just happened this weekend was about 10 to 15,000. I don't know that we've heard the final number yet. But again, huge crowd, and both police and fire have to make sure that they're keeping those folks safe while they're here. So that's really the intent of this slide. Thanks for giving us a moment to share it. I think Roxana might have a question.
Yes, one more question.
Please.
So this information is really useful, meaningful. I'm wondering, the slide, what's changed, population served. I think this is a lot of information that we really need to have. I'm wondering if you can also add, at another moment, compared to what? Compared to how long ago? What has changed in all these different numbers that can really help us see how things have changed. Things have changed here, so that we need to change elsewhere as well, in the way that we provide these services too. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah, we can certainly look into that and pull those numbers together. Are you thinking like over maybe the last 3 to 5 years?
Sure. I mean, it's I'll leave that up to you. I'm not necessarily looking, whatever you feel makes most sense, that'll give you the more complete picture. Maybe that's helpful.
Sounds good. Thanks, Roxana.
Perfect. We can go to the next slide. Mark Wilson. So to your question, what we're going to do right now is we're going to go through some different charts, some different graphs and numbers. And I don't want to have everybody get glazed. So I want to try to make it a little bit at least informative. So we'll try to make this at a high level. But what I would ask is if you have questions, please make sure that you bring it to the group. So just real quick at the national level, this chart shows the gray bar at the top of it, shows what the national recommendation is for the number of firefighters per, so FTE, full-time employee, per 1,000 citizens. That gray bar shows just over 1.54 to 1.85 is the average. At the low end is 1.54. So if we take the low end, 1.54, that gray graph bar that's going horizontal, the vertical underneath represents the FFD. So the Flagstaff Fire Department personnel in 2005, you can see our citizens numbers were a little bit lower. Growth hadn't started really booming yet. It continued to grow. And then as you can see over time, we started dropping down. And so as our numbers start to drop down, the population grows, our FTE numbers have not been able to keep up with what that national standard is. So by all definitions, simple look at this says in 2024, by national standards of what a fire department our size serving our community of 77,000 population, we should have 33 more full-time employees. That's the national standard. That's not an assumption. That's just kind of where things exist. I'm going to pause real quick and say this is 77,000. Slide in front of this talked about our population. So what are we really running to? What population are we daily trying to take care of? It's almost double that. Not more than double that, technically. So we're not doing this for any other reason to just kind of show what we are doing as an organization and what operations is doing. And I have a lot of respect for operations, spent a lot of years in Chief Fennell's spot. They're doing a tremendous amount with the resources that we have available, but we're going to talk about that a little bit more. So as we go through to the next slide. Okay, this one's a little wordy, but stick with me. We use 1992 because guess what? Right now, I get to be called the most tenured member of the Flagstaff Fire Department. Right? Some might say the oldest, the longest, not the oldest, but been here the longest. In 1992, I hired onto the Flagstaff Fire Department. We had 7 units. We had 5 stations. We had a minimum daily staffing, meaning how many people had to be in the stations at any given time 24/7 of 20. And then this is important. We had a battalion chief and 2 ladders. Notice ladders are different than quints, and we'll get into that. Ladders were just aerial trucks with a lot of equipment. No pumps, no hose, no capacity to flow water. So that was our staffing in 1992. In 1997, we added a station because the city was growing out Lake Mary Road. We added station 6, but you'll see a theme. It's hard within our municipality funding, potential capacity, planning, and we added another station in 1997, but look how many units we have. 7 units. We stayed the same. Our minimum staffing stayed the same. What we did was we dropped one of the ladders and we put an engine in place in station 6. So because we were trying to be more efficient, how do we cover this growth without increasing the cost to the taxpayers? How do we keep
maintaining what the risks are. So you can start to see how this has evolved over time. 2004, there was a bond that was passed. Some of you might have been participating in it, familiar with it. And it was to talk about how do we move our stations? So the original outside analysis, the consultant said, you need to move one of your stations further up 4th Street, up into the Greenlaw area, and then you need to build a new station in the middle. Well, we couldn't afford that with funding and where we had things. So the direction was, let's move the current stations we have more geographically located so that we can cover more of a footprint. Those are all part of trying to be efficient, trying to be responsible for our taxpayers. How do we do that? And then we took 4 old stations that were very old, 50s, 60s, and 70s. We tore them down and we rebuilt them. So in 2004, again, we had 7 units and 6 stations when we started building some of those. Daily staffing went to 22, and then we added the Quint. The Quint got added in the late 90s, and the reality behind the Quint was we can't afford to have a truck company and an engine company in the city of Flagstaff. So we got this new unit that does everything. Let's put the same crew on a unit that can do everything. The challenge with that is you can only do one function when you're on the scene. It might have a lot of equipment, but you can only do one thing. But there's efficiency behind it, right? So we continue to see a trend of how do we try to do things as efficiently as we possibly can for our community to serve the risks. In 2025, we jumped from, or excuse me, in 2008, we talk about 2008, you're going to hear it in a couple of slides. It's an important year for us because it was pre-recession. It was right at the beginning of the recession. And we'll talk a little bit more next. But move forward 16 years, 17 years later, we have 8 units, 6 stations. Our minimum daily staff is at 3. We have no full-time staff quints. We have 2 co-staff quints associated with it. And we talked a little bit about ladders and quints. You might hear ladder, you might hear quint. We only have quints now, but people talk about ladders. That was because it was something that couldn't put water on a fire. You couldn't pump with it. You couldn't pull hose off of it. It was just specifically aerial with equipment. So we're going to watch this trend a little bit on how this is impacting kind of some of those things. One other thing that happened in 2018. 2018, we recognized, boy, the call volume is increasing significantly. We can't keep up with everything. So we started working with the greater Flagstaff region and we developed the auto aid. Auto aid was a big deal. Chief Fennell just talked about it. That's when we opened up the door to say, we don't just go to our calls because we only have 7 units and one call of any significant size will take up 6 to 7 units. So we can only do one thing. We need help from our partners. Auto aid, we started working to train and develop and work together to collaborate for not only the districts, but for also the fire department to have a safer, more efficient response target to be able to try to cover some of these gaps that we were unable to. That was a big deal in 2018 as a whole. So I think it's important that when we talk about things like 3-in-1, Chief Fennell talks about a 3-in-1, if it's in the middle of the city, 3 units go. And then if it gets upgraded, because it's any kind of an actual large scale incident, it gets upgraded to a first alarm, that's 6 units. We have 8. So one large scale incident, we're a large, any medium, small or medium average incident or above, we're down to 2 units within the whole city. So we're dependent upon partners to cover for that. So something that we want to continue. Next slide, please. So looking at this next one, this one shows a little bit of a breakout of FY 2008. We talked about that. That was pre-recession. So we had a full-time employee count in administration, prevention, wildfire management, 17.75. We had full-time employees on each shift. We had 28 on each shift. Total FTEs, we had 101.75. Total full-time employees, actually, I know Rick is probably, his brain is calculating right now. Some of those are called full-time employees, but they were part-time. But when you lumped them together, we put them into 101.75. So technically we had 101.75 position. Minimum staffing was at 22. Our number of units were 6 engines and 1 rescue. 16 years later, we're at a 0.25 increase in admin, prevention, and wildfire management. We've got a +2 per shift. We've got a total of 108, so that's our +6 of full-time employees. Our minimum staffing has gone from 22 to 23. We added 1 rescue. Well, that's the change that we've seen in 16 years. Let's look at one other really important thing that's happened in 16 years. So 2008 was kind of a big year that everybody worked through and went through. And when we're looking at 2008, that was one of those challenging times that as a city, some of you are sitting here, remember, every division had to cut 16%. No matter who you were, you cut 16% to make the recession. So we saw some trends, some dips in numbers. We got down to 88 at one point in time, was our low in the fire department. And we've come back up to where we're at in 2025. So these are the big things, is just a past 16-year comparison, 7 units to 8. We've added 1 rescue, 2 per shift, which goes on a rescue, which is an ambulance. And so that's what we've seen increase. And so it's an important thing to kind of understand how that growth and comparison happened. The next thing that we want to look at is the call volume. What changed? In 2008, we were running 9,000, just under 10,000 calls total. Fast forward 16 years, we added that 1 rescue. We were able to afford that 1 rescue. We have more than or close to doubled the amount of call volume in 16 years. So you can see it's been a really challenge to be able to keep up. From 23 to 24, we had a 13.5% increase in call volume, 911 use that came to the fire department. Total 911 use, that's for PD and dispatch to talk about, but what impacted fire. So we average about 4%, 4 to 4.5% growth any given year in call volume. But there's another important number that rolls into this. You talk about things like 3 and 1. So if 3 units go to 1 call, guess how many calls there are? 1 call, but 3 units are committed to it. If you go to a wildfire, guess how many units are going to a wildfire? 5 to 6 units are going to every wildfire. It's 1 call. So we might show 1 call, but 5 units might be committed to that call for hours. So when we look at things also, we talk about number of runs. And runs, we ran 19,730 runs, meaning units, multiple units went on calls. So when you start talking about 8 units running 20,000 runs, you start talking about how busy this department is. As an example, our slowest unit in the city runs more calls than our entire partner to the east, Summit, with 3 stations. We run that out of 1. Our busiest companies are some of the busiest companies in the state. They're busy companies. They run a lot of calls. So call volume has changed dramatically over the last 16 years. Okay, what are we running to? So this is a large breakout. We could break these down into all sorts of different levels, and Seth could really geek out, and Jessica, our administrative manager, really loves data, but we didn't want to dive too deep into it. We want to just kind of really show you. When we're looking at our general pie, about 57% is what we're into in a medical response. 911 is being used because of whatever reason it is. It can be small, it can be large. That's what we predominantly get called to do. We have the skill sets. You'll hear about that. That's one of the things that you expect as a taxpayer, is that when you call 911, we're going to be able to provide that. We are, as your public safety, we are your primary EMS provider. The other thing is 1% on fires. We talk about that. It's 1% of call volume, but there's a big difference because we run EMS calls, and the time on an EMS call is much different than the time on a wildfire or the time on a structure fire, and how many units or resources are committed. So while it's a small number, there are large impacts on the footprint of what we can provide during that. The other thing that we want to look at is other. Other is super inclusive, and I'll just give you some examples. We got special ops type calls. We got medical assist calls, which is where we don't perform medical skills. We have assist other agencies, gas calls, lockout calls, CO calls, smoke detector calls, animal calls, you name it, that fits into the other, that's what the fire department is. It's the catch-all, right? PD knows it. They get called for a lot of things too, but we kind of, anything that nobody really is quite sure what to do usually comes to one of our stations. So that's a call breakdown of some of those in 2024 of those 18,000 calls. This next one is a heat map, and it just really shows where that call density is. And you can see, as we've got our stations spread out, that there's some significant hotspots on this map. And when we say we're looking at, 18,000 plus calls, the high bright yellow areas, those are high call volume area, high call density. A lot of calls to those local areas. Some of them, we're very familiar where they're at. This is in the downtown area. Downtown has a lot of calls. There's a lot of bars downtown. There's a lot of things that go on downtown. There's a lot of calls for service that occur in the downtown district. This is out in where we have our shelter. It's a great community benefit. There's an impact. There's an impact to the job that we have and how we can help take care of the unsheltered population that are in and around that area. So all through that entire central corridor, you can see there's a purple haze all the way through the main corridor of town. Those are high call volume areas. We put our stations to geographically cover. You can see that it's a difficult challenge. We cover geographically, but our call volume is pretty central. We go through that. So some of our time and some of our response times are impacted. Real quick, just a couple numbers that I want to throw out there is stations typically, anytime you start getting into 2,500, 3,000 call volumes, you're in a busy station. We've got three of our 6 stations run over 3,000 plus calls. So from a call volume standpoint, this is a lot of calls on a small group of individuals that are doing really good work that we're super proud of as a whole. Okay, here's the key takeaways from those slides that I want to just kind of print. We've made over the past several decades, several changes to station location, full-time employees, and units based on efficiency modeling, because we've had to. We have demands, we have risks, we have responsibility as a city, and we've had limited funding, so we've tried to move things and spread things around as much as we possibly can. We've also spread our resources extremely thin to cover that growing community, the risks, and the call volume, as we've seen, have significantly increased. Wildfire risk increased. Building construction increased. Call volume increased. So as a result, we have significantly, the final thing is we've significantly fallen behind in our staffing levels, the number of units to cover the risks and demands. Now, I don't want this to be misinterpreted that we haven't been taken care of. What we're trying to say is in a municipality, in a government, there's a lot of demands. We're one of them. We're part of an entire team Flagstaff. But what we're seeing at a agency level is high risks, high demands, high call volumes, and we're seeing really spread thin resources that are falling behind national staffing levels and comparatively even to what we see here in local. Yes, please do.
So on your calls, I don't know if I'm gonna use the right terminology, but down calls.
Sure.
I know CARES is coming out,
Yep.
and taking care of a lot of those. Are you seeing that as I see it as a positive on a daily basis where CARES is actually able to come out and we're keeping you from having to come out, but sometimes you still have to, depending on the situation. Is there a way to kind of show that part of the process to where maybe resources can include increasing CARES so that our main teams are taking care of fires, buildings, different things like that versus man down calls?
Yeah, we absolutely can. And we're looking at the EMS battalion chief that's over CARES, and numbers wise, Chief Gregor, number wise, CARE is running to about how many per year?
1,700 as of yesterday, which is an outstanding success. It's the partnership that we have with Teros and the behavioral health technicians over there. Beyond anything we could have done ourselves. The challenge right now is that unit only runs from 0900 to 1900 at night, 7 o'clock at night. Where we're seeing on the PD side, they're still running about 700 calls in those after hours. And we're running about 500 after hours still in those calls. And the way we have it written too in our response policy is the care unit provides transportation as well as those man down calls. So transportation from street to facility, the shelter, the guidance center. And so when they are wrapped up on a man down call and another one comes in, we send a fire truck in to that as well.
One thing I would say, and those are annual numbers, one thing I would also say is if you pull 1,700 calls, which is fantastic, which was the point of the care, if you pull 1,700 off of 18,000, you're still running
a big number.
16,500.
Right.
And we've increased that 1 unit in 16 years. So our demand is super thin. It's a great asset. There's still a whole lot of other calls that are being ran besides just man down. Yes, sir.
A lot of information.
Sorry. Sorry, John. I know.
Thank you. I feel like I'm back in school. I'm taking on a lot and I'm peddling fast to try and keep up. So, let me just tell you what I heard, generally speaking. City population's up, visitation's up, NAU's up. Public safety calls doubled roughly from your graph. If I remember from our previous budget presentation, sales tax is one of the biggest drivers of revenue in the city. And I'm not really sure where to direct this question, but I see sales taxes increased roughly 100% over 10 years. And yet we've added 6.25 FTEs to flat. I mean, maybe it's a stupid question, but like, how's that possible? And maybe it's not a question.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
It's definitely not a question for me to answer.
That's it.
That's a public policy question.
Yeah.
And so, you know.
Who is that directed at? Asking another dumb question.
The council each year. I think it's important as you think of that sales tax that goes into the general fund, all the things that that covers.
Sure.
Because it's far more than just fire and PD, although those are the largest groups out of that general fund bucket. It covers the majority of the city organization. And so the staffing needs, the growth of the community, that impacts all those areas, not just public safety.
And if I didn't say it, I was thinking it. I guess I just assume public safety is kind of close to the top of the pyramid and things that a city should do. So anyway, I'm trying to connect dots here. And I guess that's where I'm just feeling a disconnect. And I didn't know if there was a simple answer. Maybe policy is the simple answer.
There is an unsatisfying simple answer. And, you know, we put together a budget every year and we take it to elected officials. City manager tries to match that to the community values as communicated through the council. That challenge you're pointing out is why we have asked city management and then the city council if we could come together and have this conversation here. Because we couldn't reconcile that. And so we're here, you know, with a group of concerned citizens and stakeholders kind of showing the issue to you all, hopefully to come to a solution.
Is there a way we could do some type of forum? We could ask questions, unlike this gentleman's questions where we're tying in what we learned from our last meeting in this meeting, and we look at the revenue versus the expenses. We might have questions that come up. So could there be on that SharePoint a forum where we could ask questions to the appropriate person? So maybe this would be a Rick Catter question if I have a question about revenue or something. Everybody could see. Is it an idea so that we could ask questions? Because if I ask Chief Gaylord, one of the questions I have from last presentation, he's not going to know it, right? Like, he's to whoever presented.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly acceptable. For instance, I received an email from a committee member with some suggestions as well as questions. So feel free to do that.
Okay.
We'll try and figure out where we can have a place to post them.
Question and answer.
Like an FAQ, like things that people are asking and the answers. Absolutely. We can work on creating them. Thanks. Thanks for the suggestion, Scott.
Chief Wilson, possibly. 2008 to 2025, during that 16 years, or what percentage of your budget was personnel expenses then versus now, while still only growing one full-time employee above?
So while we may or may not get to that this afternoon, depending on just how the appetite is and how this goes, we've got slides that'll break that down that are about maybe 8 slides away. We may not get there today. We may have to get there next week. We'll see how it goes. And then I'll be glad to show you.
All right, real quick, this is gonna be quick and it kind of dovetails off of what you just asked with Chief Gregor and the question about that, how the calls are prioritized, broken down, how it's getting out. So from the dispatch center perspective, and this is just going to be a brief piece of the dispatch center because the center itself is housed under the police department. And so this is just going to be kind of roughly to the fire perspective of it. And then when police gets around, either myself or Allison Hughes will get more in depth on the overall dispatch center employees, calls, all that sort of stuff. So this is just going to be one little piece of it related to the fire side of it. And when you're looking at staffing from a line perspective, all of the calls that you're talking about, those 18,000 for Flagstaff fire, when you take the other 5 districts that are coming out of there, so 6 total departments that are being dispatched out of the 911 dispatch center, roughly 22,000 calls. There's one dispatcher that's been doing that for the past 25 to 30 years for fire specifically. Other dispatchers up there, which we'll get to, but one over that entire time. So that double in call volume for that one dispatcher handling that on a day-to-day basis. And so staffing wise, that's where it's been. The other part that comes in with that prioritization of calls and how that's triaged down. When you look at what everybody carries with them now, a lot of people carry 2 of them. So you can call twice on the person. Everybody has a cell phone. It's not 25 years ago where you had to go physically find a phone and dial 911 and call that in. It's everybody has it. So where that 911 call is coming from is anywhere. The passerby, not the stop to check on the individual or figure out, is this an actual call or not? It's zoomed by, thought I saw something, let me call 911, they'll go figure it out, done my due diligence and move on with my day. So as we see that call volume increase, the availability to call 911. Also the 911 becoming a primary care provider. Individuals not going to urgent care or the family home visit from the doctor or the direct connection to the doctor. It's now 911. We become that, not even the emergency primary care, the total primary care at times for individuals that are calling 911 with that. And then social media posts, that as well is another generator of calls. When you have an individual making suicidal statements or threats within a social media platform, pick one, and that individual sees it, you can't blow a lot of that stuff off. So a call is going to get generated from that and then sent to that individual's house, business, residence, whatever it is, to go and check on what's going on. And so then with also the regionalization of that dispatch center, we currently have 6 fire agencies that are coming out of the 911 dispatch center. There is a move, which is a smart move. It's just working to keep up with the volume that's going to come with it, is to have all of fire regionalized out of the dispatch center here rather than having them go through secondary dispatch centers. So Ponderosa Fire, Camp Navajo Fire, potentially Williams. There's been asks from the Navajo Nation to help out with the casino out there and some of the struggles they've had being dispatched out of Tuba City or Dilcon. Mormon Lake Fire, Country Fire up in Valley. So a lot of other agencies that are looking for better service, continuity of care. Whereas now if we have a call come in, there's already multiple agencies with dispatch centers, DPS, dispatch center, Guardian Medical Transport, which houses the medical side of it for the ambulance service going out. A lot of phone calls going around to coordinate the correct units to go. When you add in those other fire units, now you have multiple agencies responding to the same call that are now working through different dispatch centers. So the efficiency coming through a single source with dispatch is something that's being looked at, that's supported by both the fire admin and the police admin to be better, be more efficient, provide better care. That comes with additional calls, additional stresses, more people needed. And on the fire side, specifically for the dispatch center, we've had one individual with all that growth, one per shift, 24/7, that's been handling that for the past 30+ years. That call volume's increased. So that's the basics of the fire side of it. If you have any quick questions on that, if it's an overall dispatch question, we're going to hit that in a few weeks when we're at whatever point we get to the PD side of it, overall PD dispatch.
Just on it quick, because I know it will probably fall under over here. They're working on the process with the drones and being able to see what's happening a little bit ahead of time. Will that also enable them to come out on your calls to assist that overall view where you get the one person that calls that says, there's a guy laying on the road. I don't know if he's breathing or not.
The answer, yes, no, maybe. The technology piece itself is huge, which we haven't even gotten into the point of tapping into we have a new CAD system that's coming in right now. That'll be done probably within the next 12 to 18 months. That brand new CAD system, modern CAD system, which is computer aided dispatch. When you call 911, the call gets plugged in on a computer up in dispatch, gets sent out to the little mobile terminal that's in all the engines or the police vehicles, the cruisers. And we communicate that way, all the information, access to the internet, what's going on, background information. We're getting a modern CAD that's getting put in, which has already been funded prior, which is going to be a 12 to 18 month turnaround. With having a modern CAD, we can now start adding technology into how we're doing it. There are programs where having a cell phone, you're calling on a cell phone through dispatch, we can connect, send you a code, you hit yes, I want to accept. And now the dispatcher can look on the terminal and you can show them what's going on to get better assessment of what's going on. In EMD, which is an emergency medical dispatch process, to be better able to process calls down medically, is this a high priority, low priority? Looking at Tony with Guardian Air, having better continuity with other partners out that provide air ambulance service, utilizing them in their air resources as a one point of contact where our dispatchers not having to call around to every air service to find out what helicopters are available. We can partner with Guardian, call them, they'll do the legwork as the air ambulance service to find what's best to send to that call. AI call taking is a huge one that can take a big burden of the non-emergent calls, things blocking the roadway, animal in the street, dogs barking, loud noise, and initially process through an AI call taker, which then eliminates the need to have a live person tied up and then to send things out to triage the situation. It can go through that AI call taking, which all then leads into better quality assurance, quality control, reviewing of calls, utilizing all that technology, which has a cost associated with it, and then the individuals being able to put it in and maintain it and having the systems that can support it where we're not at right now. And so, yeah, all of that, and the drones on the wildfire is another one, rather than having multiple units go driving around the woods trying to find smoke that you may or may not see. The ability to use drones to go out and pinpoint. There's cameras already, not getting too in depth on what Paul was over here was going to talk about. There's technology out there. We don't have the technology in-house to support adding those things on right now to be more efficient with what we're doing.
Or cost recovery from other entities that you talked about, like if you're dispatching for High Country, do they pay into the dispatch center to offset those costs that you're looking at?
The finance goes through and what we're moving to now is a more efficient process as well. Finance goes back and recalculates the total cost of the center per year, breaks down per each agency what that percentage of cost is, and then go into a flat billing rate for the next year to recoup costs per agency, along with some ongoing calculators and factors in there for technology, keeping up with the next step. So all of that's built in to try and recoup that cost, be able to maintain and move forward with products and efficiencies.
If I could add to your question, Skydio and drones as first responders is part of our new Axon package, but we just want to be very thoughtful in it. It's been out for about 2 years in cities around the country, and we're starting to see some of the data and research come in on it. Pasco, Washington, Scottsdale, Arizona, Cincinnati, Ohio. They're starting to see 30 to 40% decreases in needing to send a patrol car or a fire engine to something because the drone is CAD dispatched overhead and it's providing the reality of what the call is. So I think that applicability, you could see before they roll out a big red piece of equipment, leveraging that as an efficiency is very real.
I was gonna say Vince Martinez had his hand raised, but he lowered it.
Vince, go ahead.
So I have a question. Did you actually choose a CAD? Do you know what you're moving to?
We're in the final steps right now. There's a consultant that's been hired. It's going to work through the process of, and this is another huge efficiency too that the city's done. The consultant's going to work through, get the bells and whistles sales pitch from all the vendors.
Wow.
Had that, it's been narrowed down. We're going to go through and specify this is what we need the system to do. And the third party will then go back to the vendors and say, show that your system can do this. So when we get a system, it's not wasting money. We're not getting what we thought we were getting. They're going to go down and whittle that all down. So when March, April, when that final check is signed or that contract is signed, that it is the product that we need to be able to add all this stuff on and not get stuck at the end of it going, that wasn't exactly what we were looking for. And now we're behind the 8 ball again.
Well, Guardian Medical Transport is very excited to hear that you're moving in that direction, because that 911 emergency interconnectivity, that immediate transfer of information, that ability to satellite out to all these other PSAPs as well as the non-PSAPs, that's incredible. Good job. Thank you.
And that's a huge partner with it, that efficiency of it. Sending the right unit to the right call with the right needs is very cumbersome right now, labor intensive with phone calls, trying to share through third-party apps. Having a modern CAD, we have the ability to bridge CADs together, even if they're using a different product. We have the ability within charting systems to bridge the charting system, so it's less redundancy within what's being done or overlap. And then working with Guardian, the emergency medical dispatch protocols to triage that call down. We don't need to send a big red truck. We can send Guardian as that transport agency in the city and the whole region. Guardian covers a huge area, but be more efficient with what we're doing to reduce costs on that side of just sending things and driving them around, because the old gasoline ain't cheap right now, or the diesel. So it ain't cheap. So being more efficient, smarter about how we're doing that. So partnering with Guardian on that. Did you have one? Yeah. Other one, there'll be a much more deeper dive into, like I said, dispatch coming up in a few weeks when we get to the PD side. That's just the nuts and bolts on the fire side.
You have a question. I'm not sure who to address this to. And this goes more towards, as we're talking about wildland, we're talking about the increase in fire risk. I really appreciate the efficiencies and how you guys have addressed things, having been in the fire service myself. The jump being between multiple apparatus based on each call. What I'm curious about is what the increase in the fire risk and what our ISO rating is, as well as we're seeing insurance companies starting to push back, dropping homeowners insurance. Going, in my mind, this is a manpower issue. How do we start combating that? I think that's really why we're here as well. Is there a plan in place for some of that now?
Well, the insurance issue, we're prepared to talk about that at length because that's top of mind for many of our citizens. ISO, for those who are not familiar, the Insurance Services Office is a entity that's funded by the insurance industry. They assign communities property protection classifications based on their firefighting capability. Flagstaff is currently a 2. With a 1, we could achieve, the most advantageous ISO rating for ratepayers, commercial businesses without fire protection and residential homes. We've known for quite some time the fact that we don't have a staff ladder truck is the reason why we're not a 1. The insurance industry also has a parallel conversation that is top of mind, which is the wildland fire threat and how the insurance industry is underwriting communities. And there are a lot of factors in play. We're fortunate to have Chief Otrogi, who is representing the state of Arizona fire chiefs on a panel right now. We've got the Director of Finance and Insurance. We've got the State Fire Marshal, Director of Forestry. We're getting ready to roll out a strategy to try to mitigate risk. What we have to do, in our view, is we're not participating in trying to regulate the insurance industry. What we're trying to do is quit burning down so many homes. And if we find a way to modify that and monetize that so that the insurance company can underwrite it, then we're gonna have a much better chance to address that issue. And so we're working very hard. We're very much engaged, real proud of the engagement of our organization. We'll tell you a little bit more about it. Here's what the frustrating part is. Your insurance services office classification and your wildfire management risk. We're on a meeting with the vice president of Verisk, which owns ISO. We asked, how are these two issues intersecting? And he said, I don't know. So that's where we're at. It's a really difficult issue. We're at the forefront of trying to develop solutions in the state of Arizona. We're working through the Western Fire Chiefs, one of several states advancing this. But it's complex. But we have a strategy. It's getting ready to roll out. And that is a part of how that's part of the 5 E's. So we're working on that. We'll tell you a little bit more about that.
Thank you, Chief.
Good evening, everybody. Seth Greger, EMS Battalion Chief. Rumor is I might be the last brain dump on you, so stick with me for about 10 minutes if you can. I'll try to make it quicker. As Chief Wilson said, when you call 911 with the primary EMS response, we do respond with our transport unit that is in our city, Guardian Medical. 911 comes into our dispatch protocols. It gets triaged out to the police department. We are working towards sending the most appropriate unit. It's a very challenging thing when we operate in a gray world out there. Right now, when you call 911, you're sending a fire truck and an ambulance. Minimum staffing on our fire trucks. We have all EMT trained as a baseline. To get hired with Flagstaff Fire, you're an EMT. If you want to pursue a paramedic, it's an additional 1,200 hours plus another 48 hours every 2 years. There's also advanced cardiac life support that is involved with that training, pediatric advanced life support that support those medics. I'm going to focus a lot on the paramedics when I talk about this because that is bringing that advanced life support. When you call 911 for an unfortunate cardiac event, there's a lot of things that go on in that scene. I'm going to pick on Tony right here because he knows what I'm talking about a little bit, but Tony's had a bad day. His family's called 911 and he's not breathing. When we show up, we're bringing our 3 members on our ambulance, on our fire truck. We're also having a Guardian unit show up with a minimum of 1 paramedic. We also have a minimum 1 paramedic on ours. To do everything to give Tony the best chance to survive, we have to work on his airway. We have to put a monitor on him to look at his heart, potentially restart it. We have to start IVs or what we call interosseous into your leg to push drugs into there. We also need to have somebody over there overseeing the whole scene. Direction. We have to have these people bouncing ideas back and forth and making sure that we are following our pre-hospital standards. We work under NAH at the hospital for our medical directions. Our paramedics are required to memorize over 86 protocols. That's both adults, that's both for pediatrics, general guidelines from the state, and it is all dictated under the pre-hospital standards. I touched on the tools a little bit. When we show up to that scene, we got a lot of tools coming in. There's a lot of stuff that we need to know. Cardiac monitor, we're looking for basic calls. We're looking at vital signs, blood pressure, things like that, the amount of oxygen in your blood. We got a lot of drugs that we bring. Those are pain drugs. Those are drugs to start your heart. Shortness of breath calls, we can assist you with that. We have a lot of equipment that goes with that. Splinting, we can stabilize that. We can also give you pain medications to take that edge off to hopefully relieve some of that stress and pain. And then for the worst case scenarios of airway, we can stick tubes down your throat and breathe for you. That's what a paramedic can do. Next slide. Just some quick reference to these slides. These are some trainings we did just recently. On the right, some of our light scopes that we have to practice our innovations. These are great tools that have the little screen that's going to make us most successful. On the left, that's Tony. Sorry, that's Tony laying on the ground. We're trying to restart his heart right there. What you don't see there is a lot of people. When I just mentioned that bad day for Tony, all those people doing airway, monitor, drugs, and lead, those all need to be paramedics. Those need to be advanced life support trained, and that's going to give Tony the best chance of survival right there. We do run man downs, but we also run a lot of time sensitive critical incident calls. Just to name some of them off, cardiac arrest, we do go on DOAs or dead on arrival calls. We go on stroke. These are all time sensitive. Pains, respiratory issues, overdoses. We go on 69 overdoses in the last 2 years. We go on a lot of injuries where those can be time sensitive. If you have a kid in pain, that's a rough call. You got to deal with the kid as well as the family that is there. Seizures, if you don't address seizures right away, those become a respiratory issue and you can potentially stop breathing. We do train to the highest levels. As you can see, we do some pretty intense trainings. We do have some pretty awesome equipment provided there on the right. That's thanks to CCC that we partner with, a lot of training. We do monthly training requirements that we have to do. Those CEs, continuing education, that our paramedics and EMTs are required. EMTs, they still have to do, I apologize, I have the numbers down. They have to do 40 hours every 2 years. So the paramedics at 48, EMTs are at 40. We do have a monthly training calendar for EMS, and we're rotating it, keep it fresh when so they have enough continuing education through those 2 years. Quality assurance is big. I'll speak on the next slide, but I can hit it here. Is we have to meet state and local protocols. We have to send in proper documentation to pre-hospital when we run certain calls. So we need to be training to those high standards on how to document, what to capture, and in essence, providing that good patient care to that member. One more thing, go back. Something else that we do that's really becoming prevalent in the fire service is mental and health wellness. We do have requirements in the stations that our guys do work out. We have that as a policy. We want them to be fit for themselves, but they need to be fit to be able to provide that patient care. Mental health is huge. We're seeing bad stuff out there. There's a lot of bad stuff that can happen in this town. And I'll just hit on one now. The last 2 years, our folks saw in the city of Flagstaff saw 201 cardiac arrests. That has an effect on people. And thankfully, we got some funding this past year with Redemption Counseling that has provided that outlet for our members to be able to take care of themselves and their family and then go home healthy. One thing I didn't add on here was cancer prevention. We have internally done a lot of mitigation with our trucks and how we recover after fires, of cleansing ourselves of those potential toxins. We're big on that. What I'm trying to push this year is a lot of cancer prevention. We need to get ahead of these for our people. Our department, unfortunately, has seen a lot of cancer issues. I mean, it goes back to Chief Wilson's time. Sorry.
Way back.
92.
What you're saying.
It goes back. We've had a lot and we've caught some too. We need to get ahead of this and get to that industry standard.
Screening still a challenge for you guys? Getting your people screened. We know that you are at a higher risk. You're gonna have a higher risk of a heart attack, and getting properly screened, I know it had been an issue in the past. Is it still?
I worked 25 years and never got screened. Yeah.
Funding is challenging. Next slide. So I go back to those 86 protocols. That's one there, right there for a cardiac arrest. That's one of the more complex protocols that our paramedics have to memorize. And when you start talking about sending a minimum of one paramedic, having to deal with that and the memorization and not having that support of a second paramedic, it adds a lot of stress on that person. You throw a pediatric header on top of that, you've ramped it up 10 times at least. Those are our most stressful calls, is pediatric that is not breathing. If I'm getting too graphic, I apologize. This is just kind of second nature. I don't mean to say things that are offensive or anything. I just wanted to share the picture of what we're dealing with out there. So what has changed? One good thing that I will change is I got promoted.
See it quite.
I'll step back from that. It's been a curse too. It's been difficult. But we almost 60% of our calls are EMS, and we've never had my position before up until now. Thanks, Shannon, for working us through that. But with me, there's a new chief in town, there's new standards. Okay, I want the best equipment. And when I say that, it's not the, it's modern policing. I'll steal something from the chief here. This is modern EMS, pre-hospital. These aren't fluff. These aren't anything. These are industry standards where we need quality, good equipment. We need to be keeping up with the times on our training. And we also need to be providing that support for our paramedics and EMS. Pre-hospital, I recently heard this one. Pre-hospital medicine is hard and it's complex, and it's advancing. It's changing. A lot of what we do in pre-hospital, and when I say pre-hospital, that is before the hospitals. That's what we're doing when we respond a paramedic to a house or a scene. We can do a lot in the field that they're going to do in the hospital. We're carrying some really cool stuff. When I say cool stuff, like drugs, that we can make some change. So well, that's ever evolving. And when it evolves, those paramedics have to keep up with that. So we need to make sure that we're staying up with it so that we can provide that good service to the public. Paramedic demand, this is a national issue. Paramedics are getting swiped from departments and they are a hot commodity. And I go back to, we need to be able to support them with the training and compensation and the support. And when I say support, I'm talking the secondary paramedic, I'm talking the mental health issues and those diffusing CISD calls that Chief Fennell was talking about. We need to be able to have those in place to support them. Demand versus funding. I'll keep that one short and sweet. Everything's getting more expensive. Price of gloves is going up immensely since COVID. Population increase, I think we've already hit that pretty extensively. We're just seeing a lot more demand from the public as far as what 911 is used to. I threw the care unit on there. Care unit has been an incredible report. The caveat, and I think I spoke of it, we're still going to those types of calls. So for further information, we're presenting to council on January 6th, just more of an update and providing them that information. Ultimately, it's their decision on the direction of this goes. Thank you.
Just to wrap up a little bit before we're going to stick a pin in it here. It's a lot. I think I heard that. It's been a lot of information. And we just want to pause for a second, just to kind of piece it all together. It's a lot of new terms, 3-in-1 and, minimum staff and so forth, and it just, the whole, how many trucks do you have and all that kind of information that you're being confronted with. The dilemma that we have is instead of taking the standard amount of equipment and staffing to the types of extra alarm emergencies, what we're faced with is we are taking less and we have less people there when we arrive. And we can get into that a little bit more with you all. And just the other piece of that is when that unit clears from an EMS call, our bread and butter service delivery unit is that engine. And so as soon as they say we're available at Mrs. Smith's house, Mrs. Smith just went to the hospital in a Guardian medical transport, then we're available for the next call and we're instantly available for next call, no matter what type of risk it is. So fire risk, another EMS call, and things of that nature. Important part of what we did. Mr. Wright in the sophomore high school class said, and I'll never forget this, he said, the mind can only absorb what the backside can endure. And you all have been really good. And you've been very helpful. And I think it's a good place for us to stop. We've got another session with you and we'll try to be efficient, but we were really shooting for an hour and a half because, you know, we saw previous, no reflection on the speaker, none whatsoever, Rick, but, you know, we kind of noticed at about 90 minutes, Migo, everybody knows what Migo is? Mine eyes glaze over. So we want to just be respectful of that. We've given you a lot of data. So we just want to be mindful of that. Remember, you can ask questions. We'll get you information. Anything we provide any member of the committee, we'll provide every member of the committee. And so if you have a question, just shoot that email. And then we'll be back next week and you'll be able to ask questions there as well. But you all have been really kind, really grateful for the opportunity, but it's a good place to stop.
Again, for being here. We'll be back at this facility next week. We'll start again in 3:30. Oh, thank you. Roxanna, go ahead.
Yes, I promise to be brief. I first of all want to thank you all for your presentations today. I have not been able to be as present in previous meetings, so I'm thankful that I am able to be more present in this one. And I just want to address, the previous presentation, talking about whether you were being too graphic or not. Please be graphic. Please offer, as clear as possible a picture of what we're dealing with. I've appreciated watching you describe where we've been, where we are. It would be also helpful to have a sense of where we're heading. What could be happening towards the future. Yes, we can talk about, best case scenario, we get the funding that we need, so you can have what you need, that we want that, but I personally would love to hear your best educated guess of what the worst case scenario looks like. At least within these conversations, and we can figure out how that gets rolled out to the public or not. But that's helpful to know as well. We need to have a reality check on these things as well. I hope that makes sense.
Thank you, Roxanna. Appreciate it. All right, we'll see you all next week. Have a good weekend.
Thank you.